This clip is sponsored by Med Travelers. If you're an SLP interested in travel therapy, visit medtravelers.com to get started. I'd love an example of a neurodiversity affirming goal that you would write on an IEP. Like, what would that look like? And then also, I'd love to know what sort of sensory strategies have you found to be effective to increase some of that motivation? And I know that may be different depending on the student or child. So, okay, neurodiversity affirming goal, and then some strategies.
So this
Or
is just a
motivation.
general example, but one thing that would be really easy. We know that traditional social skills goals aren't neurodiversity affirming. Usually what they're doing is just teaching kids to hide their autism, try to act like neurotypical kids. So a lot of goals would be like staying on topic or talking about a non-preferred topic for X amount of minutes. Like Chris will talk about a recap of The Bachelor for 5 minutes while asking 3 follow-up questions.
It's definitely a non-preferred topic.
So what are the?
I was going to say, I'm impressed.
Yeah, his accuracy is still really low on that one. I'm measuring it. We'll see if we can get it higher.
I'm getting better.
But, a really easy change to make is just by changing that goal to a self-advocacy goal. So it can be that the child will self-advocate when, they want to change a topic, when they aren't clear about what's happening in the conversation, in navigating a communication breakdown. So it can still be a conversational goal, but you're adding a self-advocacy component so that they have the freedom to say, hey, I don't want to talk about The Bachelor right now. Like, they're not being forced to do something. So that's maybe an example.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even going back to that story of if a student has sensory needs for loud sounds, the goal can be something like student will self-advocate for sensory supports by asking the teacher if they can step outside for 5 minutes, or by seeking out one of 3 accommodations that are written in the IEP, as measured by a 4-stage rubric. And that would be something that would be helpful for everybody. But yeah, definitely a neurodiversity affirming way to go about it.
Yeah, and to answer your question about sensory strategies to use, it's so individualized, but something that I love to do is have conversations with kids. We go through what all the different sensory systems are. We talk about things they like or don't like. We talk about the tactile system, touch processing. Well, do they like really light touch? Do they like deep touch? Do they like Play-Doh? Do they like playing with sand? Do they prefer when people don't hug them? And just starting to have those conversations with them about what feels good and what does not feel good to their body so that they can learn those things and then be able to eventually advocate for them. So, in a more like black and white concrete way, we essentially are teaching them, here are some things we can do to calm ourselves down when we need it. And then here are some things we can do to alert ourselves, when we feel like we're about to fall asleep in class and we need to wake our body up, here are some things we can do. So helping kids to really understand that, there are different ways they can use sensory inputs to help them regulate.
And do you think it's also important to start to recognize, like, let's say you're mid-session doing something, are there certain things that you can see, or like, oh, okay, I know we need to now do something to help regulate them if they're not communicating that? Do you have a trained eye?
I wish I could say it's always that I could always spot the signs. But the more therapists I teach, I have a sensory program. We've trained now hundreds of therapists across the world, and there are still kids that they will see who they're like, I can't figure out what the trigger is. And it's like their seesaw just tips all the way so instantly. And I think something that we don't often consider is emotional regulation, which plays just as much of an important role in it. Because a lot of these things we might see, we might see a behavior, quote, behavior, and assume it's sensory related, but it might actually be some kind of emotional reaction that's just manifesting in a physical way. So, like, if a child is maybe like chewing on their shirt, we might think, oh, he needs the sensory input, which may be true, but it might be because he is so emotionally dysregulated. So, yeah, I think there are some kids where you can see the signs. But another thing you can do to prevent those sudden changes is learn how to modify the environment. So there's using sensory strategies, but there's also how can we change the environment so that it's more comfortable for this child so that they're less likely to have their seesaw tip. And it's like Chris was talking about those fluorescent lights, like changing out the lighting, stuff like that can make a huge difference.